Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. What we're going to be looking at today is a very specific area of the e-commerce experience, which is the delivery side. Call it delivery strategy, call it delivery proposition, whatever you like. Really what we're looking at is how you can actually fulfill your customers' delivery expectations. Because there's lots of options available to you, so how can you choose what's right for you, I suppose. My name is Andy Mulcahy, and I'm Strategy and Insight Director at IMRG. IMRG is a trade association for online retailers. I imagine a lot of you on this call today will be pretty familiar with us, but those that aren't, we do all the stuff that is you would expect from a trade association. But the main thing that we do is we measure the market, so we benchmark retail performance in hundreds of metrics. So if you want to find out what some of those are and see how you can get involved, do look at our website. I have two panelists with me today for this webinar, so if I can just ask you to introduce yourself, chaps. Firstly, Patrick.
Thanks, Andy. My name is Patrick Taylor. I'm Business Development Manager for Locate. So at Locate, we provide location data in over 240 countries to over 15,000 customers worldwide. That includes 50% or over 50% of the top UK retailers. From a personal perspective, I work with, or have worked with and do work with some of the top retailers in the UK and top brands, working with them to boost performance, increase efficiency through an improved user experience.
Great, thanks, Patrick. And Ciaran, if I can just ask you to introduce yourself and then lead us into the first slide, please.
Sure, Andy. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ciaran Bollard. I'm the CEO of Kooomo. Kooomo is an enterprise cloud e-commerce platform. I've been working in this area for the last 20 years in digital and e-commerce. Previously, I had my own business in digital. I had my own music business online. We had about 20 million users. So I come from a digital marketing background, and then more recently in the last number of years on the e-commerce side. So guys, I'll start the presentation. So today's webinar, as Andy mentioned, is to address the topic of customer delivery expectations. And so I'm delighted that we have Patrick and Andy to join us today. And please feel free to ask any questions in the panel, the control panel there, and we'll get to the questions at the end of the presentation. So just one slide on Kooomo. I promise I won't sell too much. So yeah, just as mentioned, we are a cloud commerce enterprise e-commerce platform. We combine kind of the number of years experience in e-commerce with the next generation platform. We offer the full stack of technology in the cloud, and then we have as a services team that wraps around the technology to provide that experience to help customers on their digital commerce journey. Customers include people like Morrison's and Morrison's Nutmeg in the UK, to Havaianas, the flip-flop bakers, to many other different types of vertical markets in e-commerce. So that's just a little bit about us. So the agenda for today, we split the agenda into three sections. The first section is the challenges facing retailers around delivery and the expectations. What do customers really want based on the hard facts and statistics that IMRG, Locate and ourselves have across the market, looking at the options, communication channels and the user experience. And then we'll leave the last section for a Q&A, and we'll try and give 5-10 minutes minimum to the Q&A, because I'm conscious that a lot of people might have questions. So, I mean, I think it's very compelling when you look at the statistics around delivery, and you look at the increased competition around delivery with the likes of Amazon and many other providers trying to compete, and retailers and brands trying to compete with those the delivery expectations that they feel the consumer has on the back of the incredible logistics that Amazon has. And it's interesting that 74% of consumers are likely to shop again with a specific retailer if they have a good delivery experience. So clearly it's compelling, clearly it's very important, as we all know, and so that's why we felt today it was important to address the key challenges, I guess, faced by that. So Andy, I think maybe if you could start by just talking through those statistics and just giving the audience an overview of the key takeaways from some of the recent reports that have been done in this area.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ciaran. So the previous slide was talking about what a good delivery experience is. So I wanted to address that question, I suppose, in a fairly negative way. So this is from a survey that we do every year. We ask 1,000 questions. 50 questions to 1,000 people. The other way around would be ridiculous. And we try to find out what their perceptions of online delivery are. And this slide you see in here, this graph, the question was whether delivery concerns sometimes prevent them from shopping online. Now, these are the top 5 reasons that they cited. And the two big ones there are risk of failed delivery, 52%, and the additional cost of delivery, 47%. So what they're saying there really, and they say this throughout the study, throughout the survey, is they just want to have certainty around receiving their good, their order. That's absolutely paramount for them. And you know, surprise, surprise, they don't like paying extra money for stuff. Who does? You know. So those are the two things that are absolutely shoot through the whole thing. What's quite interesting is that although it is in the top 5 there, the lowest of those top 5 is that delivery is too slow. So 34% were saying that you know, that's a potential barrier. And of course, what's happening at the moment is we've got this move towards faster, ever faster delivery. But it's quite interesting in that people aren't really asking for that. And we've been doing this survey for 10 years, I think. And at no point in that time have they been saying that they want really fast delivery. Throughout the duration of it, 2 days has always been absolutely fine for them. But the infrastructure of business is moving forward, so they're being educated into thinking that delivery should get faster. And I'm not saying that, you know, delivering something fast it isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing, of course. But if you deliver it fast, you've got to make sure that they're there to deliver it. That is the absolute key. So if you say it's going to be there in 2 days, or you don't really give them a date, and then you deliver it next day, you might be thinking, well, that's really great. But if they weren't expecting it, and they therefore miss that order, then that's an absolute failure. Looking ahead to Black Friday, which is, you know, really breathing down our necks, I suppose. The fast delivery there isn't such a big deal. People don't need it really that fast. When you get towards Christmas, yes, then it becomes a much bigger deal, and I'm going to share some information on that a little bit later.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andy. So, I mean, let's summarize that. So, I mean, from our experience working with retailers as well, and just looking at the kind of customer experience side of things, I mean, clearly it's very important that you communicate on your product information pages exactly the delivery options that are available to the consumer, and giving them, you know, the option of express, I think, is important as well. But ultimately, it comes down to making sure the basics are right, the right items delivered to the right place and the right time. You'd think that they were kind of easy things to achieve, but you know, they can sometimes create a lot of challenges. We're in a, you know, complex world of e-commerce sometimes, and the basics sometimes aren't necessarily correct, and that leads to, you know, a lot of unhappy customers. And so it does create challenges. Meeting the expectation of the customer, and in today's competitive environment with logistics, I think there are some key challenges for retailers around delivery. We know that on the back of the competition in the market, that, you know, the next day delivery service is a big thing for customers. Obviously, on-time delivery performance dips are a major concern, and pressures coming from other retailers, predominantly, not necessarily the customers themselves. Like Andy mentioned, from the statistics and from the IMRG report, the most important thing is that you communicate really clearly the delivery options, that you deliver against those delivery options. And, you know, even within 2 days is still a very reasonable option for customers, and customers are happy with that. It's when they don't get the product that they ordered, and when they get it outside of those 2 days. of course,
another thing there, Ciaran, sorry. Another thing there is if you want to, if you want to have a really high checkout abandonment rate, the thing to do is be really not be upfront at all about the fact that there is going to be payment for delivery. So we've done lots of studies in this area, and we know that when you put those delivery costs in just on the checkout, so there's a complete surprise to them. So you think you're paying £20, then you've got to pay £24. That is exactly the thing that annoys people. So being upfront, I think, is just a really, really important thing.
Absolutely, and we did some A/B testing actually on that, Andy, with some of our customers. One of our big customers, Havaianas, is a flip-flop, major flip-flop manufacturer, and it was interesting actually. What we were trying to do was look at the balance between the margin on the product and the delivery options that were available, and providing a free delivery option above a certain average order value. Interestingly enough, of course, it actually did drive up the average order value, which obviously helps the margin of the product, and gives you more room to play with when it comes to offering free delivery and free returns as an option for customers. And I think that having the delivery delivery price, the delivery timeline, and the delivery options, including returns, clearly outlined in the product information before checkout, not necessarily only just at checkout, but even before checkout, creates trust with the customer. It helps the customer feel like, you're being open and transparent. And, I think certainly that's been the experience we've had in terms of conversion rates and cart abandonment rates with our customers, that it's a very important consideration, given that 74% of customers will shop again with you if you can deliver a good experience. I think the other area that we wanted to get into was delivery failures resulting from orders placed with retailers and online merchants, and each year, and the size of that, right, in terms of the cost to the retailer, the cost to the brand. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's 1 billion in avoidable costs, really, that is going, which could be completely avoided. And all of those tips, which we'll go into in more detail on the following slides, around communicating the message, around being clear about the delivery timeline, making sure that the address lookup options are available for customers, so they're not being delivered to the wrong address, multiple address delivery options, all of those considerations, which we'll go into as we proceed. So Andy, do you want to jump in again with the statistics around all of this?
Yeah, sure. So this is just to quantify that move towards faster delivery, if you like. So the two options on the left-hand side there, economy and specified day, which is basically next day. What those bars are showing is the June allocation for the last 7 years. So as you can see, the basic thing to pick up here is that the economy one has gone down and next day has gone up. So what's feeding that? It's the fact that we're promoting next day a lot more to people. So it's not just the free delivery next day as kind of standard. It's that people can get above a threshold in order to qualify for free delivery. So if you spend £80 or whatever it is, then you qualify for next day delivery. So that's the kind of thing that's driving it, and you don't really see it slowing down. I'm not sure really how you go back from here. That's kind of the direction of travel, really. This is the quality of service. What this is the percentage of on-time delivery, basically. So there's 3 lines there. We start in October because don't ask, it's just a really complicated answer. But that's showing you the course of the year and how quality of service changes throughout the year. Now, this shows you the last 3 years. So the green line is 2018 to date.
Andy, sorry, we just lost the audio a bit there, I think. So you might want to repeat that last line.
Yeah, sure. So the green line is showing you the 2018 performance to date. If I was to go back a few years and show you sort of pre-2016, they were a lot more bunched up along the line that you see along the top there, which is the sort of, what colour should we call it, blue-grey. colour there, which is 2016 basically. Now there's a split that you can see there, which happens around the beginning of the year in 2017, and you can see that yellow line basically descends, and the on-time delivery performance came down quite a lot. And then moving into 2018, it's been the same. The big dip that you see on the left-hand side is Christmas. You expect that to dip a bit because there's a lot more volume going through. But this really correlates quite strongly with this move towards faster delivery. So as there's pressure to get things there quicker and quicker, surprise, surprise, the percentage of arriving on time has actually gone down a bit. So there's definitely work to be done there in order to keep customers happy.
Okay, so what happens when deliveries go bad? Okay, and we've had some recent examples actually with our customers where this has happened. It was a time-sensitive delivery. I won't mention the brand, but that particular retailer ended up suffering a lot because the person happened to be a big influencer on Twitter and had 1.5 million followers on Twitter, and was very vocal about the delivery being late. So the knock-on effect can be huge in terms of brand reputational damage and losing brand equity, and from something that can absolutely be avoided with some better planning, even just the customer service side, and ensuring that customer service is one customer service team is managing all clients across all sales channels. Often there's a different customer support team for the different sales channels, and in our experience it tends to lead to confusion from the customer. It tends to lead to them having to be in touch with multiple customer service agents, and can create confusion. Clearly, we've outlined the huge costs associated with this for retailers. We mentioned in the previous slide that it was over $1 billion in cost lost, which is obviously huge in terms of the margin. And margins are tighter and tighter, and with Brexit coming in and tariffs and taxes being added to products, it's a much more competitive environment, certainly on the international landscape. And so all the extra resources that are then required to try and deal with that bad reputational damage, returning the product, reshipping the product, and the extra time involved. So let's get into kind of what customers really want and what we can do to improve the experience. So the number one reason why customers abandon their shopping carts is typically due to unexpected shipping costs. And it's incredible really today that there's a huge amount of e-shops and online sites that just don't show the shipping information. They don't display anything, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent in terms of the options that are available to the consumer. And clearly, we've pointed out the statistics behind the retention rates, behind the reorder rate, if you do get delivery correct. So it is so important to make sure those options are clearly outlined at the product level and then reinforced throughout the checkout process, as we've discussed. And I think that free shipping isn't always an option for some retailers. The margin of the product, the sustainability of that just isn't something they can offer. But I certainly know from retailers we work with, they try to offer options like that only on the basis of a minimum order value. So by combining by two, or in the case of Havaianas, they use the example of a minimum order value of 40 euro, and then you get free shipping, which is essentially 2 pairs of Havaianas as well. And with the Morrisons and Morrisons Nutmeg or the grocery stores, it's typically 35 pounds is typically the average order value for free shipping. But there are other options that you can introduce. Something that I think is still not the number one option for a lot of retailers is click and collect. We all know that the high street is suffering. We've all seen the numbers, and we've seen recently with House of Fraser as well, some of the challenges that people are facing, and it's sad to see. But I think that click and collect for sure can address a number of issues. One, it provides the customer with choice in a busy world where they need convenience and options available to them. If you have a strong retail presence, and even if you only have one store, it's still going to drive footfall. We know that the multi-channel buyer or the multi-channel purchaser ends up spending, I think they say it's 40 to 50% more than the single channel buyer. So typically when a click and collect buyer comes into store, 40% of them will buy something else when they're there, particularly if you introduce personalization to the shop assistants, so that they can see, you know, that they've been interested in X, Y, and Z products, and they can introduce, for example, if it's fashion, they can introduce another fashion line that's just come in that's relevant to them, and mention that to them when they're picking up their order. But clearly it reduces the costs. It provides for an additional option if you haven't got the option for free shipping. So it does, you're showing and demonstrating to the customer that you want to be able to provide flexible options to them. So I think click and collect is definitely one of the key components of redressing that balance where you don't have the opportunity to offer free shipping. For sure, you need to have, if you can, offer the option for an express delivery, where you can't offer, you know, next day delivery as part of a standard option, and that's free. For sure, offering the additional option of express has been proven to increase customer retention and customer satisfaction, based on all the statistics that Andy has already mentioned. So I think that's definitely a valuable option if you can introduce that as well. And please submit any questions that you have in the panel, as you can see in front of you, the go-to panel, and we'll try and address any of those questions that you have as we move through the presentation and at the end. So Andy, I think the next slide is just showing some of the statistics around, bear with me, click and collect for multi-channel retailers, and it shows the evolution of that from 2010 to date. So can I hand back to you?
Yeah, sure. So click and collect, you know, is completely mainstream now. If you go back to sort of 2010, so 2010 was when we first started tracking it. It wasn't linear progress for it at all. It kind of went up and went down a little bit. But over the last couple of years, it has been pretty linear, really, and it's now over 1 in 3 for multi-channel retailers. So over 1 in 3 use orders for multi-channel retailers use click and collect as the fulfillment option. As we're just saying there, it's a big deal for the high street. You know, that is the only thing really at any kind of scale where omni-channel has kind of worked. It's the only way that online and offline have really come together. And I think that perhaps gives us some kind of view of where this stuff's going. I mentioned earlier about Black Friday and speed not really being of the essence around that time, because it's very far out from Christmas. There's no desperation to receive your order. As you get into Christmas, then obviously time does become a bit more precious. And it's click and collect really that comes into its own there, and we've looked at how click and collect is used in that lead into Christmas, over Christmas week, and it's those retailers who offer click and collect who really pick up a lot of orders there, and as the week progresses, it's the ones who are offering next day click and collect as opposed to just standard 2-day or whatever, that really mop up a lot, and they mop up all the way up to the 23rd. Of December, so there's plenty to be had there. Now what we're going to do is look at communication. Second point on here. So what do they want? When do they want to know about the status of their order? It's one of those kind of interesting things, really. Communicating with shoppers can be for prospect. And the thing is, data is kind of everything now, and communication is everything. So we're constantly connected to everything. And you know how it works. You get hammered by adverts and emails and goodness knows what else. You're not really too sure how you signed up for a lot of this stuff. But there are areas where they absolutely do want you to communicate with them. And the bit of data I'm just going to show you in a minute will illustrate that. So this is from the survey that I've mentioned a couple of times so far, and it's the 50 questions to 1,000 people. And we asked them what parts of the delivery process they'd be happy to be updated on. And as you can see, it's basically everything. So all of those are around about 80% and over, and it has been the same for 4 years of tracking. So they want to know dispatch date, they want to know progress of the order, they want to know tracking numbers. They want you to get in touch if there's any problems. Obviously it's not great if you've got some kind of problem, but they'd rather know if there's going to be some sort of delay or whatever, because they might be waiting for it at home. So what this says really is that there is a communication stream that you can have with them that is actually very attractive to them. They want information from you around this time, and it's the kind of thing they'd be perfectly happy to receive by text message as well, because then you're definitely going to see your update, and I think it's reasonably unique in that sense, actually, the progress of your order. They want so much information about that thing. And there's also opportunities in there, I think, for doing a bit of marketing. So, here's the information, but also at the bottom, perhaps there's something that says, why not leave us a review, and encouraging people to constantly go and leave reviews on the experience that they're having with you. So it's not all just information, but there's a very clear communication path, I think, that is not necessarily as good as it could be at the moment.
Great, Andy, thank you. So when deliveries go bad, what are the common pitfalls to avoid? So I think Andy's spoken about this in terms of the statistics there, but the practical examples of what you can do through communication. And so on your site and through all your communications, ensuring that customer support details and operating hours in all the shipping and relevant delivery information on a geography basis is available. Because we've certainly seen with customers where they put this overall notification around free shipping or shipping times or shipping deliveries, but it's for the UK and it doesn't necessarily apply to other markets. So geo-localizing your messaging and geo-targeting your messaging is crucial. And I think a common thing we see as well is just product availability as well, which is a big thing when it comes to the wrong product. We mentioned the 3 R's, the right time, the right place. And so making sure that the product availability is targeted and the stock is targeted at the right locations and the right geographies through your e-commerce platform and through the stock synchronization, particularly if you're using click and collect as an option. And by synchronizing the stock with click and collect, you should be able to use that drop down to see what stock is available in that particular store. But clearly making sure the customer is aware that if there are any issues, that there are many channels by which you can communicate with us as a brand. So buying, live chat is a very popular one these days, and certainly from the statistics, and I think Andy might have some more statistics around this, but live chat is something that resonates with consumers, and they can get an immediate answer, and they're not getting frustrated. As well as having the support from email and social media. And like we mentioned earlier, having a customer services team trained and synchronized across all channels, whether that's, particularly when it comes to B2C as opposed to B2B, but certainly for B2C channels across a consistent customer service message is important. One of the other things is multiple address accounts. We've had this recently with another customer of ours, a luxury chocolate manufacturer. And so, there will be times where you want to deliver something to your work address, and there'll be times where you want to deliver something to your home address, or you could be lucky enough to have a couple of homes and you have that option available to you as well. But there are many e-commerce e-shops out there that just don't have that option. which leads to confusion, leads to frustration, and contributes to that 1 billion in lost revenues from failed deliveries. So I think that's another crucial component. I think we mentioned this, but in summary, I mean, do not try to compete with the Amazons of this world. It's very difficult to do that. I think you're much better at setting a clear customer expectation. Don't over deliver on your shipping times, and make sure there's as many options available to the customers as possible, and clearly communicate those throughout the e-commerce journey and throughout the purchase journey. So at this point, what I'm going to do is hand over to Patrick, and Patrick works for Locate, as we already mentioned. Locate is a partner of Kooomo's, which essentially provides address lookup and address validation and verification at the checkout process. And certainly we're implementing Locate we're actually implementing it free across all our customers, because we feel that it's such a crucial tool for our customers. So Patrick, perhaps you can talk a little bit about address validation, verification, and how that impacts the e-commerce journey.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ciaran. I'm a bit conscious of time, so I'm going to try and kind of fire through this, but get on to as much of the detail as I can. So here at Locate, we actually did some research on the impact of bad data and the impact that has on business. We spoke to 300 retailers and over 2,000 online shoppers from across Germany, the UK, and the USA. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of stats that came out of that, and then what you can do as a retailer to minimise that risk. So first of all, you can see here, I thought this was a really surprising statistic of the amount of people that are actually impacted by delivery issues. Looking at Andy's slides from previously, maybe he doesn't find it as much of a surprise. But I think the key thing to take away from this is that potentially 3/4 of the customers who are coming to your website have experienced delivery issues elsewhere. So if you can get it right, then you've got much more chance of them staying with you and staying loyal. As we saw, 74% of customers staying loyal to brands when they're delivering on delivery. And the second part is about partnerships, really, and it's really interesting in terms of the impact and who consumers blame for failed deliveries. So first of all, shoppers will make a decision, or can potentially make a decision, on whether to shop with you, depending on the courier that you choose. So it could be worth looking into options of how many couriers you actually use. So it comes back to that, giving the consumer the option to, if they don't trust one courier, they may want to use a different one. And unfortunately, even if the courier gets it wrong, the consumer will expect you as a retailer to put that right. So it's really, really important to trust people, to choose couriers who you trust. So we're not going to stand here and say that address data is the only problem we've seen. We've addressed many other issues with deliveries before this, but it is a significant problem, and it's something you can fix very easily. So as you can see, 20% of retailers blame failed deliveries on inaccurate address entry. And a lot of those retailers say that the customers don't realise they've typed in incorrect addresses. I think I'll move away from blame here and just talk a little bit about responsibility. Whose responsibility is it to ensure that address data is captured correctly through a checkout? Well, as a paying customer myself, I would say that's really down to the retailer. And as I've already seen through the other slides in the presentation and the one previously, ultimately it's the retailer who suffers from a financial perspective and from a brand perspective. And it's really, really easy to fix because the data is out there. In the UK, there are 30 million addresses updated by 3,500 changes per day. So the data's there and it's ready to use, you just have to access it. And so if we talk about checkout for a second, obviously when someone gets to your checkout, you've done all your work, your marketing's gone well, you've managed to attract people, and they've actually got through your website, they've found that killer pair of shoes they want to wear to the ball on a Saturday night. And this is a crucial part of your website. There's two things to note here. First of all, I'm watching too much Disney thinking about it and its impacts on my job. But second of all, your customer is committed. They want to buy that deal from you. They want to go through with the purchase. When they get to the address form, or the checkout form, there's some standard things that we'll ask for. Email, phone, clearly their name, and potentially their address, or maybe one or two addresses. If you're asking a customer to fill in all of that detail, straight away from a psychological perspective, it looks like a lot of work. And we all know if something looks like a lot of work, you're less likely to do it. They may well think, we'll move away and come back later. And once you've lost that momentum, you could potentially lose that shopper. So from a psychological perspective, one really key bit of information I'd say from a user experience point of view is that only ask your customers what you really, really need to ask them. Think about them and what you really need within your systems. So let's say they do go ahead and they really, really do want that pair of shoes. If we are looking at the whole form, if you're asking them to fill the whole thing in total, that's up to 5 lines of email of address data. We're asking them to do that in the right format, and we're asking them to make no typos whatsoever. So as you can see on screen here, there's a solution. Type head address validation, type head address validation will solve that solution for you. So as the user starts typing, validated addresses are returned to them. When they see the address they want, they simply click on that solution and it pulls through the address in the right format. This works on an international basis in over 240 countries. So there are clear benefits. I mean, from a very general perspective, it's a win-win situation. It's much less work for your customer. You're making their life much easier. So you're reducing the amount of work for them by about 75% in terms of keystrokes. And the added benefit for you as a retailer is you know you have the right address in your system in the right format for your courier. So there's more chance of that courier getting to the front door of a customer than without it. And you're avoiding any bad data going into your system. So I try my best to avoid the sales pitch, but I just want to talk about a couple of really clever things that we do at Locate to make that user experience even better. So first of all, we cater for users around the world. The typehead solution, you can type any part of the address that you like. So you can search on your street first if you're in Germany. If you're in the USA, a zip code will cover roughly 2,300 addresses, so you probably wouldn't want to use that. So you can start typing with your department or with your house name and number. In the UK, I very rarely tell people my postcode if they ask me my address. So even in the UK, people like logical searching. They like to start typing from the start of their address. The IP address can give us a huge amount of data. So we don't only know what country you're in, we also know whereabouts in that country you are. So if you happen to live at number 1 Main Street in New York, that's the result we'll show you first, as opposed to 1 Main Street in San Francisco. Optimized for mobile devices. It was 2 years ago that I think that mobiles overtook desktop on Black Friday for the first time, and we all know that that gap has only grown since. It's a key issue for a lot of retailers where they will optimize their whole site for mobiles but forget about the checkout. Our solution automatically works on mobiles. And the last one, allow for typos and misspellings. This is probably the biggest one for me. 25% of people who call our service will make some kind of spelling mistake as they type. So it's really important that you don't dead end them. In terms of user experience, that's kind of the cardinal sin. You really don't want them to look and see that dreaded no result. So you need to allow for typos so they find their address as quickly as possible. By implementing typo address validation, you ease the service for the customer, they have a great user experience, and as a business, you have validated data in the right format in your address. So, I mean, we think clearly that this should be on every e-commerce website in the world. And I think that's something that you agree with, isn't it, Ciaran?
Absolutely, Patrick, and that's why we've implemented it kind of free for all our customers. We see a huge amount of failed deliveries due to the wrong address inputted. And so by implementing that solution, the address lookup just solves that whole issue at a tiny cost. So we see the value in that, and that's why we've implemented across our customer base. So thank you for that, Patrick. So in terms of a final takeaway, I think we're all aware that a bad delivery experience can't be a good thing, right? But it does leave a lasting impression, and the customer retention rates, as we've mentioned earlier on, are it pays off, right? If you have a good delivery experience, you'll be a repeat customer. It's hard, as we all know, to acquire a customer and to get somebody to check out and to purchase something. So I think more emphasis should be on trying to keep that customer once you've got them, once they have purchased. And so there's no point in kind of optimizing the product information and all the rest of the e-commerce journey if we fail at a critical point, as it seems from the statistics from consumers, which is, you know, both 72% and 74% from both the statistics on IMRG and from Locate. And so now I think, guys, it's probably time to hand over to you and to take some questions. I know we have had some questions through into the main panel, so I think maybe I'll address this to the three speakers, myself, Patrick, and Andy. One was just, what are the quick wins? You know, it's coming up to Black Friday, so what are the quick wins in terms of delivery? What can I do now that's simple and easy to implement that can affect delivery? So maybe if I hand that to you, Andy, and then Patrick, and then the three of us can have a quick 30-second answer.
Yeah, I mean, it varies so much depending on the type of products that you sell, the sector that you're in, how expensive your goods are, etc. I think that my impression with Black Friday is that it's such a frantic time that people, retailers, sorry, are not massively interested in doing things that are really different. So this applies to marketing and things like that. I mean, you know, what's the campaign that you're going to do? I think that retailers tend to look at it and say, we know, because we've got experience now of several very large Black Fridays, we know what we did in the past, we know what worked, we know what didn't work. So let's address those areas, right? Where we failed last time, let's address that area and solve that. Let's do the stuff again that did work. Let's keep an eye on what's going on with our competitors and all that. Of course you do that. But I wouldn't do anything completely radical with it. If it kind of works, then go for it. I wouldn't say that delivery is a massive differentiator around that time, because there's enough time to get the goods before Christmas, if indeed it is a Christmas present. I suppose the only exception to that would be I did see a few companies that sell expensive stuff offering free delivery as part of their Black Friday offer. So instead of discounting, they offered free delivery. So that might be one option that's available to you.
Okay, thanks for that, Andy. Patrick.
Thanks. Yeah, I think for me, from a user experience perspective, I think I'd focus back on that, only collecting the data that you really, really need. So from a psychological perspective, you've got to make it as easy as possible for the customer to get through that last part of the process. So I'd say, unsurprisingly, really, considering who I work for and what I do, that address validation is a really, really quick win. It could potentially increase your conversion rates, and also will definitely increase your quality of data.
Thank you, Patrick. I mean, my kind of quick tips would be, just from experience working with the retailers on a daily basis, simple things like at the product information stage, and when somebody's browsing products, clearly having the information around, you know, delivery options available, the pricing, communicating the pricing, and you know, a quick win I think for people is just, if you can't offer free shipping, I think offer something like Parcel Motel, which is a very, you know, reasonably straightforward option to implement. Click and collect obviously is something that, you know, isn't that cumbersome to do, unless you've got a significant amount of stores. Yes, there's work involved, but the benefits can, you know, are huge in terms of footfall and customer retention and increased average order value. So I think they're three of the key tips, I think. And then as well, communicating throughout each of the steps of that purchase journey, and reinforcing and being clear about the delivery times, delivery prices, and the delivery options. You can't, you know, if you can do those things right, we know that from the statistics, that's what 72% of the consumers are saying isn't clear, or is why there's failed deliveries. So I think those are to get the basics right, and then you can start looking at, you know, the other opportunities like click and collect and full omni-channel and synchronization of stock and all those other things. So I hope that helps answer your question, and thanks for that question. Andy, you have a couple of questions that were added there, so I'll hand to you.
Yes, just a couple here. So just looking at how you resolve courier issues. So if you have a failed delivery, is it retailers that have to take on the costs, or is it down to the courier, and how do you decide such things? Shall I kind of give my perspective on that first? I think from me, I would say that it's that clarity issue again. Really, again, it's if you just agree what the parameters are there between courier and retailer, so that when issues do arise, as they inevitably do, it's very obvious who's going to take responsibility for it.
Shall I jump in there, Andy, as well?
Sure.
So I think from the report that we put together, as we kind of mentioned already, consumers look to the retailer to solve that issue. And actually, an interesting stat that came out is that on average, failed deliveries cost retailers €14 a time. So it's quite an expensive business. And the reason that cost comes is they have to pay for the redelivery often, or offer discounts or vouchers as a way of recompense. So yeah, definitely from the research that we did, it's the retailers who end up paying the price. And we've also mentioned, the negative press that will go against the brand as well.
Yeah, I mean, my experience of different retailers would be some offer free returns, some have agreements in advance made with the courier companies, so there will be an agreement around that. And then actually, in some cases, we have also a managed service part of our business, where we fully manage the full e-commerce managed service piece, and in that case, we often cover failed deliveries as well, where e-commerce is outsourced to our business. So hopefully that helps in some way to answer your question. Andy, will we take? I know I'm conscious of time, so can maybe we take one more question, and then if that's okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's good. So next one, leading on from what Patrick said, actually, is tips for winning customers back if they have a negative delivery experience with you. So I think Patrick was mentioning something there about having to offer kind of recompense or discounts or something as a way to doing that. I mean, I guess it depends what they do with it, really, because some people might have a negative experience, but then they come and buy back from you anyway. And then there's other people who have a negative, so you get another chance to kind of win them over. But then there's other people who will have a negative experience and go and tell the world, and they'll go straight on a review site and post all kinds of negative things about you. So it depends how it kind of plays out, really. But you can always turn a negative thing into a positive thing if you've got the right focus on it. So going onto that review site and speaking to them, getting it off the review site as soon as you can. So saying to them, oh, send me a message to this, and I'll help you deal with it, and we'll sort it out. Can help turn that into something positive.
Okay, great. Well, look, guys, I'm conscious we have gone over, and I know your time is precious, and we have a busy season coming up. So I want to thank everybody for attending the call on behalf of Kooomo, Locate, and IMRG. Thank you very much for agreeing to be panelists on this call. We will send out a recorded version of this, and we'll send that via email to all the participants. Feel free to respond if you've still got questions that we weren't unfortunately able to get to because we ran out of time. We're very happy, I think I speak on behalf of all the panelists, we're very happy to answer your questions following this call. So that recording will be available in the next day or so. Again, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with the busy season. Take care.
Thank you.